Okay, so continuing with section 3.4, we're going to use the rational zeros theorem and the quadratic formula to find all zeros and sketch the graph of the given polynomial. So the rational zeros theorem helps us to find all of the rational zeros. There can be other irrational zeros for which we're going to use the quadratic formula. But we want to start by finding the rational zeros. So the rational zero theorem tells us to consider the constant term and the leading coefficient, which in this case is 1. So our possible rational zeros are going to be plus or minus 10, plus or minus 5, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 1. And since we have a coefficient of 1 here, we don't need to divide by anything else. So we have 8 possible rational zeros. Okay, so we're going to use synthetic division to find our rational zeros. So write down all of the coefficients. And let's start with 1. So bring down the 1. 1 times 1 is 1. Add those, I get 4. Add those, I get -9. So this one doesn't look like it's going to work. Let's try -1. So bring down the 1. Alright, this one isn't going to work either. Let's head to 2. That's not going to work. Let's try -2. Oops. Mistake. Sorry, -7 times -2 is +14. And that gives us 9. And so we get 0. Okay, so that's our first 0. And then we're going to start from here. Alright, so we already tried 1, -1, 2, -2. Let's try 5. So bring down the 1. 1 times 1 is 5. Okay, and 5 works as well. So far we have 2 zeros, 2 rational zeros. Okay, so our zeros are -2, 5. Now this does not factor. So we need to use the quadratic formula. Okay, so I'm going to put these into the quadratic formula. So -b plus or minus b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. 2 plus or minus 4 plus 4 over 2. So you need to remember to simplify the radical. So radical 8 is the same as 2 radical 2. And because all three of these are divisible by 2, we can simplify, and we end up with 1 plus or minus the square root of 2. Okay, so we found 2 more zeros. 1 plus the square root of 2, and 1 minus the square root of 2. Okay, so these are all the possible zeros. All right, I can use these to sketch the graph. So I know that I have a 0 at 5. I have a 0 at negative 2. I have a 0 at 1 plus the square root of 2, so that's going to be around 1.4. And then 1 minus the square root of 2 is going to be around 0.6. Okay, and I know I have positive, even, powered coefficient, first term. So my graph is going to look something like this. Okay, so you can go ahead and find all the values, all the zeros of this given polynomial using the quadratic formula. So first find the possible zeros, use synthetic division to find all the rational zeros, and then use the quadratic formula to find the irrational zeros.